We are live. Episode 14 of the Catcher's Corner. Super special episode. I'm Eric Samolsky, joined as always by my co-host Sami Ackley. Sami, it's home run derby night. How you doing?
Yo, my man Polar Bear is going off tonight. Dude, 35 in the first round? Poor Sal Perez. Come on, man.
Listen, if he wins this thing, there's a nice bonus check that's got to go to that BP pitcher.
Bonus check to the BP pitcher and the artist that detailed those bats. That's pretty insane, and I love that idea.
Yeah, and now we're recording this podcast. Ohtani just tied Soto, so we're going to go into a tiebreaker. So we're going to give all the information while watching the home run derby in the periphery. Sami and I are super excited because we are joined by a panel of bullpen experts. Our thought was, everybody's trying to spec on saves. Why not get some of the guys who, do the most work on this and just kind of let them educate us? So I'm going to have them introduce themselves and tell everybody where the listeners can find their work, and then we'll dive right in. So Nate, why don't we start with you?
Perfect. I'm the shortest and the quickest through all this because essentially I pretty much.
That's what she said.
Thank you very much. All right.
Love it.
Didn't take long for that.
Coming in hot. Coming in hot.
That's what happens when you do nothing but bullpens. You have a tendency to stay on the same type of shows and interact. And Greg, myself, and Mike have been the triumvirate in terms of appearing together. Mike and Greg have not been together, so we've heard. Mike is extremely excited. You're supposed to ask me about me, so I'll get off on this tangent. But we do a podcast. Aaron Pags and myself do bullpen games. We started off over at Fantasy and Frames together, and now with just venturing off into this crazy, stupid idea of ours to do bullpens exclusively. You can find our work at, like I said, at Bullpen Games MLB. And then we try to do our Fab and Five every Sunday, and we do our little recaps weekly if we can. And it's it's hectic, it's fun.
And the aforementioned Greg is
baseball.
Greg Jewett.
Baseball is a messed up sport, Nate. Don't worry about it. It's a messed up sport.
Oh, no, we took the craziest aspect of it.
Yeah,
I know. You guys are doing yeoman's work. Greg Jewett, longtime friend of the podcast from the very beginning. Greg, tell everybody where they can find your stuff.
Most everything on the old Twitter machine at GJEWETT9. I do the closer column weekly, although I feel like I submit it on Tuesdays, and by Wednesday it's aged more often than not. Those are on The Athletic. Those publish Tuesdays, depending if it's Nando, it gets up in the morning. If it's Funston, he does it in the afternoon out in Seattle. So just depends on who's on the desk that night. But and then I do my closer charts, which is going to be fantastic. I'm going to roll out of bed tomorrow and not have to work on those at whatever time I wake up, because there'll be nothing to recap. But I pin those posts every day. I don't know how or why, but it's just become a part of the routine, and it always makes me laugh when I'm in there adjusting the things and there's like 10 people watching as I'm changing a bullpen hierarchy live on a random Wednesday night. But God bless those people that are as focused on this as we are. So I do all of those things, and then I also run my own Substack, Coffee and Closers, which is still free. I've published a little less lately because when I do The Athletic, that pretty much takes Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday off the board. But I've been trying to get out of the one at least Thursday or Friday, and then I've been putting out stuff on Sundays with an eye on NFBC free agent bidding, just like Nate and Aaron do with the great job with the video. I think I have a face for radio, so I've been staying off of the video machines, but I might venture in eventually.
Come on in. We'll welcome you. You can come with us if you want.
I mean, that's probably a trait that all of us share here. Face for radio.
Last on the panel, Mike Carter. Mike, tell everybody where they can read your stuff.
Well, I'm by far the ugliest person on this panel. I'm looking at all the other four of you guys, for sure. Well, geez, where can't you find me? That's a better question. No, I'm on Twitter as well, at MDRC0508, the worst Twitter handle of all time. And there's really no rhyme or reason to it. It was kind of a silly thing. I got on Twitter a couple years ago just because my daughter was on it for school stuff, and I never thought that I would be doing any of these types of things that I'm doing right now. But I work primarily at Roto Fanatic, writing their weekly closing remarks article. It's a labor of love for sure. I also work part-time for SB Streamer, doing a streaming article for them on Sundays, 3 hitters and 3 pitchers that are owned in less than 20% of leagues that might be able to pay you some dividends. And I also work part-time at Fantrax, covering 2 start pitchers for each week. And then I also work part-time for another website called 9 Inning Know-It-All, although I don't do as much for them right now. They're kind of on hiatus, but that's more narrative pieces that I write about baseball. So I got a few irons in the fire.
Nice.
I like it.
Love it. So we're going to dive right in. We're going to start by just talking about some of the messy bullpens, maybe not some, trading deadline affected bullpens, though they might be, but just some current messy bullpens and what you think people should be looking for in the second half. We're going to start with Sami's favorite team, the New York Yankees. Greg, we'll start off with you. This is still Chapman's job, right?
The weekend at Houston says no.
Okay. So what do you
he was actually he was the poster boy of my post last week. I broke down. It's been like a tale of 2 seasons for him. At the first 18 games, he looked easy. There was like the pitching ninja gif every morning of him doing the pose after the game-ending strikeout, with him looking like a badass.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, he forgot how to throw strikes, and now he's struggling. I don't know if it's mechanical, but I know he's not throwing enough strikes. If Brad Hand can get by with a 4-seam fastball at 93 miles per hour and a slider using command and guile, then Mr. Chapman can do the same. But I think it's half mental and half mechanical. So we need him throwing strikes. So but he's, and Lindsay Adler, who covers them for The Athletic, tweeted out that he's obviously not in the high leverage trust tree right now. There was 2 times this weekend they could have gone to him. One was Garrett Cole saying, "Hell no, you're not taking me out of this game." And then the next day he left Chad Green in, who obviously had nothing in the tank after throwing 2 innings on Friday, to give up the walk-off home run to Altuve. So I do believe if Loaiziga hadn't been out with COVID, that it would have been his game on Sunday. And he's actually probably the best reliever right now in that bullpen. But now he's on the COVID thing. So whether or not he can return when they open up against Boston will be a determining factor in how they proceed. But I don't know. Like, how I had Chapman and Tout, and I benched him this weekend. How's that?
You're smarter than I am, because I didn't. And
well, he didn't pitch, so it really. But he cost me the week before. I lost to Ariel Cohen by 10 points in a points league on his 2 blowups.
Yeah.
If I don't have Chapman in, I win. So I learned that lesson. I said, the hell with it. Once I saw what was going on, I took him out, especially going to Houston. I didn't want him in my lineup that weekend. So we really need to watch what's going to happen. I mean, it's going to, and Boston's always been a struggle for him. That's 8 of their next 10 games.
Jesus. Greg, but I mean, let's say hypothetically you're a Chapman owner, right? And you've invested that cost into Chapman. You've got to assume that even though it may be a mechanical, confidence thing, whatever it is, that at some point he's got to find it, right? Like the second half.
I believe so.
Right.
I do watch body language, and he's a different, like when he gave up that home run to Alonso and he put his hands up on his head, I was like, he's lost right now. He's struggling. You can't quantify mojo, but he doesn't have it at the moment.
Right.
And you can just see it. Like he's in there waiting for the wrong thing, and he hung a slider. I mean, he didn't hang it, but it was right where Alonso has hit 35 home runs today during the home run.
Exactly.
Right in his sweet spot, and he just yanked it. I mean, you can't leave a pitch like that at that part of the zone. And that's where I'm saying, so this is a command issue. So what I want to see is him actually getting back and throwing elevated fastballs at the top third of the strike zone for strikes. And if he starts doing that, then it opens up the door for him to bury sliders in the dirt and bring the splitter back. He's only thrown the splitter 3.5% since his struggles started. So that pitch is pretty much negated. So he's become a 2-pitch pitcher again, which, again, he can succeed, but he has to throw strikes. It's that simple. If he's not throwing strikes, then he's vulnerable, because now he's aiming the ball, flattens out his fastball, and that's what's happening in these hard hit events.
Pretty amazing. All of these analytics, and it comes down just to throwing strikes.
So exactly. There's one thing that I was kind of looking at just to get an idea as far as for the Chapman owners going forward, and that the why should they hold. And I think that maybe there's a possibility that New York looks at his overall set of work in medium leverage situations this year, which he actually has a decent enough sample size. He has over 10 innings pitched in medium leverage, and he has a 154 batting average against. He has 2 earned runs, and he's struck out 21. So there's a chance, like Greg's saying, is that maybe they ease the workload, put him in some less stressful situations, let him get his head right. And mechanically speaking, if that's, here, is it sticky related? I don't think the spin rates necessarily 100% justify it, but maybe it's a confidence thing. Because if you go in there and you don't have that generate, that feel, maybe he's trying to then just, aim instead of throw. And
I was actually going to ask about the degooping.
Well, it's okay. I did that. I told these guys before you got on, I went through all of this today, and it's going to be in my article tomorrow. I'm going to have a link posted to my spreadsheet. But here, Chapman, after the sticky gate started on the 21st, his spin rate on the 4-seam is only down 130, and the spin rate on the slider is only down on average just under 100. But his swinging strike percentage has collapsed. From the beginning of the season till June 20th, his swinging strike percentage was 17.9%. Since the 21st, it's collapsed to 9.4. And you can't get people to swing at pitches out of the zone if you're not throwing any in it, and that's where everything I keep saying comes around to that point, and that's why I hammered it last week in the Athletic article, saying he needs to throw strikes, and I had it broken down from his first 18 to his last 14 outings. You can see the chasm in his performance and in the strike percentage. So, again, yes, like Sami referenced, in this day of analytics, it's something this simple. He just needs to get his command back.
Yeah, I mean, the velocity is there. It's better than it was last year even. The walk rate is a career high, but he's had high walk rates before and been successful. But I think what Greg says is spot on. I mean, you guys hit the home run on that one. No pun intended.
So let me ask you guys real quick before we move to the next bullpen. Should anybody care that Zach Britton is coming back? Is he going to join the mix, or is he basically just, I would leave him on wires
if he can stay healthy.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know. I'll be really curious if they leave Chapman out to dry for a little time forward. If it's going to be Loizaga, or if it'll be Britton, or if he's just going to go with the hot hand between those two and Chad Green. But he got caught short on Sunday with Loizaga on the COVID, and that really exposed them at the end of that game. That was a tough loss.
Yep.
So this is, we spent a while on that one. It is the Yankees are a high profile team. It is a job that everybody is thinking about and kind of curious what to do. A probably messier situation. There's even more names. Nate, we're going to start with you on this one, and you can tell us what we should be thinking with Cincinnati in the second half. Antone, Lucas Sims probably coming back sometime in the next couple of weeks. Does one of them take the job? Is Hembree going to keep the job? Is it just going to be a confusing mess and nobody's going to be anybody worthwhile to roster?
I have carpal tunnel in my right hand and hoarse throat from talking about Cincinnati from the beginning of the year.
Sorry, Nate. Sorry.
It's okay, but that's good though. That's why It's why we do this, though, because if not, people would spend their fab left and right just picking up as soon as Amir Garrett gets a save. Well, before the season, I was off Amir Garrett. Aaron was on him. I was on Lucas Sims, and neither one of us have been right or wrong. I mean, in any given week, you could have both. But like you said, late July returns for him. Hembry's been nothing short of spectacular. I mean, right now he leads baseball, or at least relievers, in K rate. Whoever saw that coming? But, if you look since June 23rd, the Cincinnati Reds bullpen has been phenomenal. Third best in baseball right now. They had this resurgence. It'd be great to get them back as a whole. But for me to pinpoint one, that's the question. Who do we go out? If everybody was available right now, who do you roster from this point going forward? And me personally, I'm still on the Lucas Sims train. I think TJ Antone still, if all of them were healthy, I think that he's best suited in the multi-swing role, the different situation, the stopper kind of, or fireman role, I guess is the right phrase. But I love what Hembry's doing now. It's hard to take him out from – they've had some consistency finally, and I think maybe they stick with him. But long-term, again, sorry, beat around the bush answer, Nate. I still would say Lucas Sims, for me, would have the most saves from July, whatever today is, 12th on to the end of the season.
Greg, Mike, do you have a different take there?
I'm a Lucas Sims truther as well. I always thought of Garrett as being kind of the wild card in that bullpen, and boy, is he wild for sure, right? I mean, just all over the map, and he wants to get in fights and all of these other different things that are going on. Sims was actually doing pretty well there before he got hurt. He had the outing, I think, before he went on the IL. He gave up 3 runs and did not do well. For him, it's an issue, I think, like we were talking about with Chapman. I think it's an issue of command for him. He's got the stuff. He's a first-round pick. He's got pedigree. Context matters. And I think he's going to be the guy that's going to come out of that. I mean, if you look at Heath Hembry, no offense to him, but he's a 32-year-old journeyman at best who's run into some pretty good success here in the last couple of months. Expected ERA is 2.83, even though his ERA is almost 5. He's got a 42% strikeout rate. I mean, he's done a really nice job. Can he continue that? I would say no. To me, it would be Sims moving forward with Antone as the stopper kind of guy. And don't sleep on Michael Lorenzen either, who looks to be coming back here in the next couple of weeks as well. Although who knows what role he'll be in.
He'll be in the Antone role until he can get back.
Is that what you're thinking?
That's what I think, because he can do multiple innings or whatever. He can kind of be the fungible. We need 1.2 innings. We can go get Michael. I think that'll be his sweet spot. Now, is everyone going to ignore Antone got a PRP? Because that's why nobody wanted Nelson Lement at the beginning of the year. I mean, is Antone really going to get back?
Yeah, I don't know.
I have reservations about him returning.
I do too.
Because originally I was like, oh, he's on his way back. And I was like, oh, wait, he's behind Sims. I think that might keep drifting into August. And if the Reds do buy, I'm really curious as to what they think they're going to add. I don't know. Do they keep getting more bullpen arms and keep trying to shorten things up? To the Hembry thing, yeah, he has been the hot hand, but since the 21st of June, his walk rate has almost doubled. He's up to 15.9%. So don't ignore that. Traffic usually equals bad things as things happen. So
Especially for
personally, I'm not going to go. I'm going to stay away from this bullpen probably the rest of the way. And it is also funny that Garrett, since the 21st, has a 40% strikeout rate, and his walk rate's gone down.
It has.
He's actually finally been pitching really good. But now they used him the other day in like the 6th inning, and he struck out the side, but it was in the 6th inning.
Right.
And as a Red Sox fan, I mean, I know Hembry kind of walked his way out of Boston.
Yes.
He was good for them for a while, and then that walk rate ballooned, and then the next thing you know, he's out of there.
Yeah, it's like he comes out strong and remembers he's Heath Hembry.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Mike, we'll make it just as hard on you because another gross bullpen situation is in Philadelphia. None of them seem like they're any good. But should we be trying? Yeah, I mean, that's true. We could talk about Ranger. Mike, should we be looking for one of these guys in particular, or is this going to be messy the whole way through?
I think it's going to be messy, honestly. I know Suarez has been getting the job done, and his peripherals look pretty decent. I do think that it will end up being Neris's job again at some point. I don't see Jose Alvarado taking it and running with it. He had a bit of an opportunity and didn't do so hot. They then end up using Neris again, and we know what Girardi is like, right? I mean, if we look at what he's done over the course of time, he doesn't have Mariano Rivera anymore, which makes it a little bit more difficult, right? As it would for any manager. But I don't see Archie Bradley coming into that role. I don't really see Kinsler coming into that kind of a role. I think after they get done playing musical chairs, unless Suarez blows it, I think it's his job for now. But Neris will be lurking, and I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to use him in some lower leverage situations to try to build his confidence back up again a little bit and run him out there. Now, Philadelphia, if they think that they're in it, you talk about a team that should go get a bullpen arm.
Yep.
This is the team, right? I mean, if they think that they're in it. I don't know that they are in it. I don't know what your guys' opinion of that is. I'm not sure how much I would mortgage for it. I don't know how good they really are. But you talk about a team that could use a guy like a Kimbrel or an Ian Kennedy or somebody like that. This team could really use somebody like that.
Yeah, I don't know what they're one of the baffling teams because we don't know what they're going to do. Here's their schedule coming out of the break. Doubleheader with Miami and then the other games. So they got a 4-game set with Miami at home, 2 at the Yankees, 4 versus the Braves, and then 4 versus the Nationals going into that's their schedule going into the trade deadline. So we should have a really firm idea about midway through that Atlanta series if they're gonna try and add anybody or if it's time for them to sell whatever they got. I don't think they can really sell. So I think they might just limp into the trade deadline and do nothing and finish out the year with the mess that they have.
Yeah, it's hard to go in with.
They could trade Bradley because he's on a 1-year deal, but that's about the only commodity they have they could deal.
And with as many moves as they've made towards the bullpen to even make more at the trade deadline, I don't want to say that shows weakness from the GM and management, but at the same time, it kind of does. Kind of says, hey, maybe we don't know what we're doing as far as this goes. But good luck fixing that mess. I mean, that's like getting, I don't have a good analogy. So fill in your own analogy, and it's a great one. Good job.
Before we move on to the next, Sammy and I wanted to pause for a second just because I don't know. Are you guys also hearing feedback sometimes?
Yes, a lot of echo.
Okay. I'm trying to figure out where that might be coming from.
Well, how about we all mute each other and mute like.
All right, so I'll mute myself. Sammy, you can talk and I mute myself.
How does it sound now?
Same.
All right, I'm gonna mute Nate for a second, and we'll see if maybe it's Nate, maybe it's not Nate. Anybody else want to talk?
Yo,
hello.
How does it sound? I think I hear it less now. No.
Yeah. This feels like that like Russian roulette. Who's it gonna be? Let's see. If I mute Mike, I hear it too. I don't hear it. Let's see.
I don't hear anything.
We might be good now. I'll cut this part out when we do the actual podcast, so nobody has to hear the.
Exactly. A roll call of shame.
Right. Yeah, it's
we'll just
thrilling.
add to this shit show. Why not?
It's thrilling listening. Yeah. It is indicative of the bullpen situation.
Yeah.
Perfect.
All right. We'll jump back into it. So Greg, we're going to go to you next because you had mentioned actually this team before we started recording and the idea that they have a new manager and possibly a new bullpen philosophy. So what should we be doing in Detroit? Should we assume that Detroit is going to settle on a particular closer, or is this always going to be just a mix of guys?
This season, I think AJ Hinch is comfortable just matching things up. So I in years past, Detroit, we all remember Shane Green, the glory days of him getting all those saves before they shipped him out of town, and they did trust one guy, and they're a one-trick pony town. That's, AJ Hinch has made it clear this year that there's really not a rhyme or reason. It's hot hand matchups, whatever's going to try and get him to that win is where we are. But those guys were really getting overworked at the end, and he got too cute the one game when he let Funkhauser be the opener, and then at the end of the game when he needed Funkhauser, he wasn't there. So the emergence of Funkhauser actually helps because he lets them. They're probably going to trade Fulmer if they can get him off of the injured list, and they're probably going to look to trade Cisnero. I mean, he's 31. It's not like, he's a building block for the future. So it is. So I guess the most consistent person would be Soto. It's just they come so sporadically that, it's very hard to fully invest in that if you're solely mining for saves. So, they're not going to win a bunch of games coming down the stretch. So, that they're coming out of the break. It's funny. It's that them and Minnesota are matching up just like the Phillies there. They start with a doubleheader on Friday, 2 games on the weekend. Then they're playing Texas at home, at Kansas City, at Minnesota. I mean, they have a nice schedule coming out of the break. So that'll be a great time for them to, if they can get Fulmer in there, to showcase some Ford deals. And then we want to see who they're getting back, because those might be guys that end up in the bullpen going forward for them. So, again, to me, the only person I think you can kind of trust would be Soto. I could be totally wrong on this. But just like the Reds, I don't think I would venture here for too many save opportunities.
I mean, is that something that fantasy folks or fantasy owners should be thinking about also is, hey, what's the risk reward here? Like all of these messy bullpens, like Detroit, you're not going to see a lot of ops. So what's the point of chasing guys like that could very well just blow things up in your face for minimal ops? Is that sort of kind of like what we're balancing here?
Yeah, and I think that's why next year you're going to see a much different approach with drafting saves. I think you're going to see guys like Hader and Hendricks. It's not going to be anymore like, well, I'll just wait and find my saves elsewhere. I think you're going to see these guys getting pushed up into the 3rd round. Because people are like, the hell with this. I'm not blowing my fob again all season on chasing the save du jour. I was getting those guys in the 5th round this year, and I was happy about it. I think next year, especially in NFBCs, you're going to see them pushed up. I'd be shocked if Hendricks and Hader aren't in the 3rd. To answer your question, Sammy, so over the last statistical year, Detroit has 30 saves of their 63 wins. That's from last July 11 to this July 11. So
that's not bad, actually.
30 saves.
Yeah, I would assume that makes sense because obviously they're going to be in close games. They're not blowing teams out, and they're going to be in close games. That makes sense.
There's only 4 teams with less.
The thing about what you said, Sammy, that I think is really important to consider too, though, is that at what cost is that save, right? I mean, if you roster someone like a Soto or a Cisnero, they could completely blow out your ratios for the week too and get you a save or get you a vulture win, and that's not exactly what you want to have happen. At least in my world, I don't want that, So and you got to weigh that all out, and I think Greg's right on in saying I don't think this is one I'd want to touch,
Nate, are you on that same boat of just it's not worth it?
Well, definitely. And to go even a step further, like Greg said, is with the draft capital that you have to invest to get one of these guys. Because if you remember week, whatever it was, 2 or 3 with Julian Merriweather, the average fab was 250, 275 for him. And in this same week, granted, it was a rare situation, but Eloy Jimenez coming off early went for less than that. So had you been able to reallocate that money, you could have swapped out having to worry about getting a Julian Merriweather, and you could have added Eloy Jimenez for this run. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So and those are the things. And sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. So it's every year we say we draft saves wrong, and there's probably truth to that. But I think next year people learned enough lessons that they're going to be adjusting on some things.
So then my quick question is, let's say what we were talking about comes to fruition. Fulmer, Cisnero traded because, they're older and they have, they can be good trade chips. Is anybody spending any money on Funkhauser, or just let somebody else deal with that?
It would really depend on my league size. Like in a 15-team league, I might kick a buck or two at it, but I really would rather get one of the other trade deadline moves that opens up a better team, or a guy's going to a spot to get him. If the Angels decide to trade Iglesias, then I would rather spend that couple of bucks on Mike Myers. So I think I would, if I'm surfing for saves, I'm going to wait the next week or two and really look to pounce at the trade deadline to when all of these, the jigsaw puzzle shakes out, and then we have a better idea of who's going where.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Nate, one last messy bullpen start with you. Kansas City. It's just going to be this way, right? We're not going to get any sort of clarification at any point in time.
Yeah, and exactly. So, Greg, we were talking pregame. We had Alec Lewis from The Athletic, who covers the Royals, on before the season started. And even him, who finger on the pulse, talks with Matheny every day, and even he said he wasn't 100% certain. He bet on Josh Stalmont from that point going forward, which I thought made sense. I was a Scott Barlow truther before the season started. I still am. His last two, appearances have been a little rough. So
they run that poor guy ragged.
Yeah, I mean they do, and that is Matheny though to a T as well. He likes to lean on his favorites, and then he runs them into the ground. And unfortunately, the next man up. The good news is the Royals have good options from that next man up. But going forward, I mean, if I had to just again like this whole scenario, you have everybody available. Who you taking? I know I'm not taking Greg Holland. Never Greg Holland as far as my philosophy goes. And honestly, there was a good piece out as well.
Never Greg Holland.
Never Greg Holland. Never Greg Holland.
Nate doesn't like Gregs.
I do not like most Gregs. Most. Just the ones that I call Dirty South. And I don't call you Dirty South. You're more dirty Northeast, I think. Is that where you're from? I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm up in Syracuse, yeah.
See? Boom, look at that. Nate knows his friends. But actually in The Athletic, there was a new piece that came out where they were talking about Scott Barlow trade opportunity with and I don't know if I believe that. I don't know if they're sellers, especially with Barlow, but it's messy. 6 different relievers have saves already this year. None of them, it's consistency. I like Stalmont for what he can deliver in terms of that K rate and yes, but it's messy, and I don't have a true answer. I'll give you my guess. By the end of the season, from this point forward, Josh Stalmont has the most saves for the Royals.
And whatever that is, it is. Like we're not
7. 7.
Perfect.
Here's like we talked about off air. The frustrating thing about the Royals is they have the highest save percentage per win over the last 365 days. Just under 60% of their wins end up as a save. But remarkable. We just never know who the hell is going to get it on Royals Roulette. It's, who's the lucky slot that night. And here's another fun fact. Back up.
Greg, are they still doing that? Is that the team that you said that kind of slots in their relievers per series?
Yes, that was from Nate gave me that information that the per series they match up their guys based on who they think. They say, hey, you're getting this pocket of batters. So Barlow, you've got the 3, 4, 5 guys of this team. So if they come up in the 7th inning, then he's in the 7th inning.
So let me ask then: let's say you had messy we've been talking about messy bullpens, right? Would you rather deal with a messy bullpen that kind of rode the hot hand, or would you rather deal with a bullpen that did it the way Kansas City's doing it, which is slotting in guys? If you had 2 situations where they were messy, what situation would you rather deal with?
I'd rather have the one where at least if I know it's A or B, I'd rather be there.
Mm-hmm.
Right. As much as it's frustrating and it looks like San Francisco has vacated the shared role, it looks like McGee's taken back over as the closer, which is okay because I have him in a couple of NFBC teams, but there was a time where it was kind of like sometimes it's going to be McGee, sometimes it's going to be Tyler Rogers. They've left it, but at least I have an idea. I'd rather be worrying about throwing 1 or 2 darts than 6.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I hear you. And since you brought it up, just before we get to trade deadline stuff, should teams or should owners in 15 team leagues, 12 team leagues be dropping Tyler Rogers if we're just looking for saves? Because is that McGee full-time lock on the job, we think?
I don't know that it's full-time lock, but he's pretty much 80%. Mm-hmm. So to me, yes. If the sole goal is saves, yes. But it's not like Tyler Rogers is racking up a bunch of strikeouts like Scott Barlow is.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you have to choose wisely, and you really have to pay attention. Look at all of the pitching categories. if you are just chasing saves and then you ignore your ratios, then that's counterintuitive. You have to make sure you're taking care of the whole package. You can't just chase the one deal. Like if saves are only going to get me 2 points in the standings, but my ratio stuff is all bunched up in my league, then I'm going to tread lightly there. You know, I want to keep the points I have in the banks and the ratios rather than go chasing those saves.
Yeah, like Kimbrel would look good in San Francisco, wouldn't he?
Exactly. Yeah, will look good whoever gets them, and wherever. But on the flip side, it all depends on who you got. Like my 2 shares of McGee don't want Kimbrel to go there, but
sure.
But I mean, 1 share of Kimbrel would be ecstatic. So
Gabe Kapler's going to kill McGee again at some point, like he did early in the season. So that's something.
I think he's done a much better job managing them since they realized the error of his overuse. But that's
we're just hoping
abuse them both.
So you guys brought up Kimbrel. Who would be the guy that would step in your estimate? Who's the guy that kind of takes over that job if he is, or if and when he is dealt?
The last man standing.
I mean,
Because they could trade Kimbrel, Tepera, and Chafin.
Absolutely.
All 3 of those guys could get dealt, and that's their. You know, I did a different Athletic article highlighting their triumvirate being before their 11-game collapse. Those 3 guys were locking down everything, and then it was radio silence. It was like poof, they just disappeared.
Right. If it's multiple, so about 3 weeks ago, Rowan Wick started his throwing program again. He started it back in March, got shut down, and now he's back up. So the expression that Greg gave is the same that I worry about is how long can he stay up? But that might be the last man standing in that bullpen. Right. You know.
Yeah. So Mike, if somebody wants to get ahead of the deadline and stash a Cubs reliever, do you have a favorite?
Well, I mean, I think like Greg said, it's last man standing. But if they decide to hang on to Chafin, I think Chafin would probably get the first shot there. Tepera could get a chance too. You know, they got other guys that have done the job before, sporadically. Dan Winkler and Rex Brothers as well. You know, and I don't know. I think Dylan Maples is still hurt, but he's another guy that's kind of been intriguing for a number of years for a lot of Cub fans. But if I had to push my chips to the middle of the table and they don't trade Chafin, I would say it was Chafin first up.
Okay. Nate, Greg, you have a different take on first up, or do you think again it's who knows really at this point?
If they don't trade Tepera, I think they could actually use the 2 of them in matchups and just wing it the rest of the year. I'm really intrigued by what the Cubs are going to do because it's going to affect a lot of other teams. Yeah. I almost feel like the team that waits the longest to put their guys out there might end up losing in this trade deadline because once the other teams lock up the stuff they want, they're not going to be adding ancillary parts. So I know it could be a slow evolving trade deadline, but I think once the first reliever chip goes, we might see an avalanche. And that'll be good for me because that'll give me something different to write about than the roulette situations and this, that, and the other. And another key thing that's going to be a part of my article tomorrow is pay attention to games left. Like you want your reliever to end up going to Toronto. They have 75 games left. Okay? Only them and Cleveland have 75. That's the 2 highest games left in the National League, or excuse me, in the American League. In the National League, the Mets also have 75 left, but they're not going to be trading anybody. Philly has 74, the National 75, but I don't know that either one of those is going to be adding. So Toronto's really the big one. If you can get if you're a Kimbrel owner, you're pulling for him to go to Toronto because they got all those extra games to play that could pad his save total appreciably. That's the one thing they need because Romano's been struggling a little bit here down the stretch.
Let me ask you, Greg, I'm sorry, Greg, let me ask you in terms of saves as a part of their win share, what does that look like for Toronto? Because they score runs by the boatload. So what does that look like?
We're looking volume there. I'm looking that up for you right now. They're at 42.9%, but that again goes through last year. So, yes, they do win a lot of blowouts. So that does. Hopefully, those extra few games would help you there. And you would think that they're going to add another starter, so they might start playing a couple of lower scoring contests. But The American League East might be decided by who fortifies the bullpen the best.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
A good call.
Absolutely. There was some talk here in Chicago over the weekend that the White Sox were kicking the tires on Kimbrel, envisioning a Kopech, Kimbrel, Hendricks closing for the playoffs.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, that would be yeah, I'd be pretty excited about that, but Greg wouldn't be for his shares of Kimbrel for sure.
I have a hard time believing the Cubs going to the White Sox.
Yeah, I do too.
Just like you never see Yankees and Mets trades. It's
right.
So
that's right. I forgot. Yeah, South side, North side. Forgot about that.
We have seen teams do that in the past, gearing up for the playoffs, thinking if I get 3 bullpen arm aces, then I can go 5 innings with my starters, 6 innings with my starters, and get through. So it would be interesting. Another thing people should keep in mind as we're talking about who's going to deal closers or who's going to deal relief pitchers is also just who's going to deal players. Right, the Cubs may deal Bryant. The Cubs may deal Jock Peterson. The Cubs' offense may look drastically different to the extent that they may not be getting a lot of save opportunities. So that's another thing to keep in mind as we go through this. Nate, I'm going to ask you about something that Sami has a pressing interest in. As a Yimi Garcia owner, should Sami be worried that Yimi is out of town?
I got a bad feeling. I got a bad feeling I'm going to get a bad answer here.
And if so, Nate, is it Dylan Floro? Is it Bender? Who would take that spot in your opinion?
So, I mean, I had a number of people that were on me when I thought that Yimi wasn't the best fit for the 9th inning, mostly because of the propensity for the home run ball, and that kind of came to fruition a little bit. But right now, I mean, if you look at Anthony Bender, I'm going to say the last 3 games have not helped my case or my cause for this argument, simply because prior to that, it was May 5th before he allowed a run. So, I mean, he was on a really, really good stretch there. And the only time he ever came in for anything else was against Atlanta to take on Acuna, Freeman in the 7th. And so everything else has been 8th and 9th inning roles. And so that's who I would look for, would be Bender. I don't know if the other guys, if you guys are more Team Floro or something. Sami, I'm guessing that wasn't the answer you were looking for.
No,
considering
not.
anything besides Yimi.
Definitely not. But I mean, I thought I saw something on Twitter the other day that said that Mattingly had given Yimi a vote of confidence. Obviously, this is separate to
sure. Coaches don't lie. They never lie. Don't worry. They always tell the truth. It's totally fine. Just don't stress.
But Yimi did come in for
you
the
can trust him just like Girardi and everyone else. And but remember, right. Yimi's on an expiring contract.
Sure.
Right.
I mean, they have nothing to gain by keeping him the rest of the season.
Right.
Yeah, and he's not a young guy, right? I mean, he's 31. He's not somebody that's going to be around for their next incarnation of great Marlins teams.
Right.
I would love Bender to get a shot at it. And I think the nice thing was, if you looked at bids this weekend, his little 3 earned run game blip really depressed his price on any fob runs. And he was going for pennies on the dollar. That's okay. Yeah. That's, you stash him in there for a couple of bucks. It's a lottery ticket. If he gets 10 saves down the last 2 months of the season, then you hit the jackpot. But we don't know. I think the nice thing about the Marlins is they play low scoring games, which yield save chances.
Any chance Floro gets a shot?
There's a chance.
Yeah.
Because Mattingly does prefer veterans.
Yeah, and he does prefer to use one guy. So I mean that could happen, I think. But I think Bender's stuff looks more like a closer to me than what Floro's stuff does. And Floro's had a pretty good role there as a setup guy. I wouldn't be surprised at anything that happens in any bullpen anymore. But I think Bender would be the guy who would get the first shot if Garcia was moved.
When I asked Fish, because everyone wanted to know about Bender, I sent him a message. Luckily, I used to work with Craig at a different site. So I was able to send him a little note, and I was like, Bender saved tonight, and he was like, well, it's tonight or never. That was when he got his first save, because everyone else had been worked for 2 days in a row, and he did convert the save. Craig will never give me. He's a company guy, so but I do think, and Greg did sound the drum saying that. If they do move Garcia, he thinks it would be Bender that would get the first chance in that bullpen.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you called Dylan Floro a veteran because I was shocked that he was 30 years old because I remember him as like a
It
Dodgers.
seems like one of those forever 26-year-olds, right?
Yeah, he seemed like he was a Dodgers relief prospect. I know that he originally came up with Tampa and then was in Chicago and all that, but he was like potentially in the Dodgers bullpen, and he's 30 and also on a 1-year contract. So that's another thing to keep in mind.
They could deal him too.
Yeah, I'm also talking myself, into this because Sami has Yimi Garcia in our league and I have Bender. So if we get that flip, it would really make my year. Be phenomenal.
Eric, maybe we should talk after this is over.
Yeah, we can chat late into the evening.
If you want to hear the most depressing thing is that in TGFBI, I picked up Bender for 13 or whatever it was, but I had to drop Ronald Acuna. That was the transaction. It's like, yay, great, Anthony Bender, and there goes Acuna. So we'll see how that turns out. It's can digress.
That would put me right into existential crisis, Nate. I wouldn't be able to do it.
Once he went down and he was getting, carried off the field, you didn't have much else to do other than hope for Byron Buxton to come. Oh, crap.
Yeah, no, it was tough to watch. Greg, we'll start off with you on this one. Minnesota.
Mike. Give Mike something. He's too quiet down there. We gotta get him.
We'll start with Mike.
Oh boy.
I didn't want to throw one at you, Mike, without putting your name next to it. But
absolutely,
Greg,
no worries.
Let's do it. Let's go to Minnesota.
Oh boy.
I know they tend to split, righty lefty in the bullpen. Could they move Hansel Robles? If they do move Hansel Robles, is there another right-hander that would pair with Rogers? Are they going to move Rogers too? What do you think this bullpen looks like?
Boy, what a mess this season has been for them, huh? I mean, they came in with everyone thinking that they were going to be the team that was going to run away with the Central, and my beloved White Sox have done just that so far, although Cleveland is lurking and getting healthy with their pitching staff maybe at some point. If I'm Minnesota, I think I'm looking to trade off everyone that I possibly can here. Again, not young guys here. We're talking about veterans in their early 30s. I personally really Rogers is sort of like my kryptonite in some ways. I come back to him very often and always think that he's going to be the guy that's going to take the role just because the skill set to me shows that he could do it. They've been trying to get Colomé kind of back into a role there that's he was pitching in lower leverage situations for a while, and it looks like they kind of got him. They're trying to get him back together there. It wouldn't surprise me at all if all three of those guys ended up getting moved and somebody like, I don't know, maybe like Jorge Alcala or somebody like that got an opportunity. That wouldn't surprise me at all. It would be terrible, but it wouldn't surprise me. I still think that they'll probably move Robles and probably Colomé as well, and Rogers might end up being the last man standing, but he's a lefty. He pitches at the end of games. He's going to have value if they want to try to move him. So it's a tough spot.
Nate, I saw you gave the thumbs up. Are you Alcala maybe over a guy like, Tyler Duffy? Are you also team Alcala?
I love Alcala. The problem is what he's done. His work this season has not backed up by necessarily. So unfortunately, I'm at the mercy of his output. But then again, Tyler Duffy, if you look at the last 30 days, his 14% walk rate doesn't exactly exude confidence either. Whereas Tyler Rogers, I think that might be personally next to Richard Rodriguez, and I know Craig Kimbrell. I think that could be the piece that more teams are attractively willing to give up a hefty amount for. Because Caleb Thielbar is a lefty that I know they might try to send out to play for pieces, but I don't know, man. I really think Rogers could command quite a bit back, in Minnesota's. They could use the help.
What if the Giants can reunite the Twins?
Oh, God.
No pun intended. They could have the Rogers brothers.
Yeah,
that would be amazing, wouldn't it?
I'd love to. I'd love to see it.
It would be like the Jets with the Carters, but anyway.
Yeah, the whole thing with Minnesota is we really need to know they have to trade Robles because he's been falling apart since Sticky. Yeah. His numbers after the 21st are not very good. So he has picked up a couple of saves and whatnot, but they better get him out of town ASAP. The longer they hold him, the less they might get. Maybe Duffy. Like I liked Alcala earlier in the year too, but he can't get out lefties. So he's pretty much he could only go in a ninth unless he's going to intentionally walk the left-handed batter and get 3 righties out. You're walking a tightrope depending on how the lineup is set up. I still think Baldelli would probably give Duffy the chance over him to start and then let Alcala take over if it came to sleeper out here. If they do trade Rogers, is Danny, I think it's Coulomb.
Yeah.
Coulomb. His AAA numbers were fantastic, and he's come up with the best K- BB on that team since he's joined it. So, if they trade Rogers, he might fall in like if you're in an AL only, that's what I'm talking here. That would be a name where you can probably get him for $1 right now, and he might pick you up like 2 or 3 saves down the stretch if they trade Rogers. But
isn't it the thing that's so crazy about all of this, though, is that you got a team like Minnesota that's mired in less than mediocrity this year, right? And they could trade all 3 of those guys, or maybe they don't. I agree with what you guys are saying. They got a young guy like Alcala that they could try to groom for that position, and they're going to put Tyler Duffy out there. I mean, it just drives me crazy. I understand why he thinks that way, right? I mean, that's the whole thing, right? Like, it's just I don't know.
If
that kind of stuff drives me nuts.
Well, they were talking about bringing up Duran to be a reliever in the second half, and then he got hurt. So that punctured a hole there because I wrote him up in one of my athletic pieces saying, hey, if they bring him up to be, let him cut his teeth and leverage, that's definitely an arm you want to keep an eye on. And then the injury, the injuries have affected them at the major league and the minor league level. It's just been a sideways season for them.
Yeah, it's been a lost season, and it's tough to see. One of the guys that I kind of got on early just based on what the stuff I was reading on Twitter was a converted, since we're talking about converting starters to relievers, Kendall Graveman, converted starter who took over the closer role in Seattle, but now there's good talk that maybe he's going to leave town. Nate, do you think Graveman is gone? And if Graveman is gone, is it Paul Sewell? Is it Steckenrider? Are they going to go back to Montero? How do you think this all shakes out?
I do think that he's a piece that they have to be looking to move. I mean, I think he still has, enough value that he could return quite a bit. The Paul Sewell is the intriguing one, and this is one thing that I know Greg just did his piece on with some of the sticky. If you look back since he was with the Mets, that spin rate 20% increase. Now, I'm not obviously pointing fingers. I don't know anything about it, but you would think they would crack down on that. Maybe it's just a grip change. Maybe it was an improvement in his overall stuff. But I spoke incorrectly earlier, by the way. Also, I said that the 42% was the highest. His 43% K rate is actually tops right now. So I do forgive everybody listening that was ready to blow up my Twitter and tell me I'm stupid. Mike, that was probably you. But he's looked excellent. He's looked very, very good. I mean, if you go back since nowhere in a run since June 1st, and it can't be Montero. I think that's got to be given. So that's who I'm looking with.
Montero might get DFA'd.
Right. Exactly.
He's the worst pitcher in that bullpen.
Yep. Any other beliefs besides Sewell? Is there another lingering name, hidden name out there you guys might think of?
No, I watched Sewell. That was the game my girlfriend and I went to in Buffalo was the game Sewell got the save on getaway day. He did 1.1 innings, actually gave up 2 base runners in the 9th, but he looked calm and cool and got those out. So again, I like the body language. And to answer your spin rate questions, pre-sticky, Sewell's 4-seam was at 24.40. Since the 21st, it's at 24.19. So not much of a difference. And his slider was 21.89, and after the 21st, it's at 21.39. His strike rate and walk rate has actually improved since the 21st, and he has a 15.9 swinging strike percentage in that time frame.
What about our friend Johan Ramirez?
What? Who?
How about our friend Johan Ramirez? Come on.
Oh my God, Nando loves him. No, it's not Johan.
No, I'm just joking.
No, Nando really loves him, and I'm like, come on, Nando. He texts me about him. I'm like, please.
Is there any shot Graveman would close somewhere else? I mean, that K rate is super low, but he's been very effective. Or do we think he gets traded and then is basically, if you need ratios, you can keep him, and if you don't need ratios, he's probably going to be a guy that finds his way back onto waiver wires?
depending on where he goes, I would speculate he'd be a setup guy.
Same here.
I got to tell you, this is a
Phillies
bullpen.
are just desperate, and they get them. But the Phillies farm system's pretty barren too. I mean, we have to weigh this too. Like some of these teams that think they want to buy, I don't know what they're going to be giving.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm super excited for this bullpen next year too. I just with Andres Munoz and Ken Giles, I think it could be pretty interesting next year.
Absolutely.
Greg, you mentioned Brad Hand before. Is he? Everybody's kind of talked about him eventually losing his job. Is he going to be moved? You know, they're kind of in it. They're fighting their way, but we think he's sticking out the second half of the year in Washington.
Well, Washington, that whole AL East, other than the Mets, really intrigues me as to what they're going to do with this trade deadline, because it's really going to change the FanGraph playoff odds. How all these, I mean, is Atlanta going to buy or sell now? I mean, with Acuna out, I mean, are they really going to be adding people? I don't know. They might trade Morton. There's going to be all sorts of – these next 2 weeks are going to be absolutely wild. To answer your question, let's look at what Washington's got coming out of the break. Now, we did mention that Washington is one of the two teams in the NL with the most games left to play at 75.
Right.
That now they open the break. They host the Padres for 3 and then the Marlins. They get an off day. Then they're at Baltimore and then at Philly. They kind of, after San Diego, their schedule is not very challenging. So that could seduce them to think that they're going to be a part of this and stay with it. I think that's misguided, but if I had to hedge my bet, I'm guessing they're just going to keep Hand and ride out the season the way it is and not give up Scherzer or any of these other parts. I think they're going to be stubborn and cling to how they rallied in past seasons and try and make it out the playoffs.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's
the thing.
And that's why I'm saying schedules are very important. That's why I'm going to put those in the article tomorrow, because I want people to see who's playing what, and you're going to be like, okay, because how these teams do. And again, I'm nervous about our Yankees, Sami. I mean, 8 out of their next 10 games are Boston, and Boston's been kicking our butt this year.
I called this before the season. That rotation is not worthy of a World Series contender. So,
and I still can't believe we gave up Ronzi. That's going to haunt me. That trade with the Pirates for Tyon is going to haunt us, just like the Rays fleecing the Pirates, but it's going to be in reverse. It's going to be.
Let's not digress here, because I can give you a whole monologue on Brian Cashman and his job performance. So let's keep it to the messy bullpens, because if we went down that route, it would get even more messy.
Sorry, I don't mean to trigger you.
Keep in mind that I think I can win this one with the White Sox trading Fernando Tatis for James Shields.
That is the gold standard for incompetence. So let's
we did draft Fernando Tatis, I believe, originally for the Cardinals, and then he obviously went back in. Not quite the James Shields trade, but I think the Cardinals can look at the past year. This just turned into a self-help meeting. I think right now. It's going to be counseling. We talk about our bad moves.
It is Catcher's Corner. So
listen,
exactly.
Listen, in deep leagues, I put some bids on John Nagowski, because I was like, oh, the Cardinals got rid of a guy who was good in the minor leagues. He's gonna produce for somebody else.
Yeah,
that's what's gonna happen.
And he's gonna.
Yeah, for sure. And let's we can segue over to Pittsburgh, and you'll be forgiven, guys, for rushing through these final few teams, because the quality of play is maybe not so great. So I don't really know what kind of value people will be getting from rostering these relievers, but maybe there's some diamonds in the rough. So Mike, since we were talking about Pittsburgh, Rodriguez seems like a sure bet to be gone. Crick could also be gone. Is it Bednar's job? Do you care whose job it is?
Yeah, well, Bednar does intrigue me in a way. I mean, Stratton is there too, but I think they prefer role. I think Crick does have some experience doing the job, but he's been pretty rough the last 2 weeks or so. I think his ERA is over 23 in July, very small sample size. He could end up getting moved too if somebody believes in him. But Bednar has really been an interesting find for them this year. He throws really hard. He's the type of guy that could get an opportunity there, I think, if they end up moving Rodriguez. Although I haven't heard a lot about Rodriguez getting moved, but in terms of rumors of where he might go, other than Toronto. But Bednar's been really good. I mean, he's got 42 strikeouts in 35 innings. He's 2-1. He's been pitching in some higher leverage situations, and could be a guy that gets an opportunity there should they move Rodriguez. He limits hard contact. Doesn't have great spin rates or anything like that, but his fastball velocity is pretty good too. So he might be a guy worth taking a chance on. He's 26, and so he's young. He's a guy that could get an opportunity there if things fall the right way.
Yeah, that'd be like the hometown, because he grew up near there. So he uses his entrance song from the Steelers. So I mean that he's a fan favorite already. My only wet blanket here is, again, Pittsburgh. Here we go. So here I know Sami liked these stats here. So over the last 365 days, the Pirates have 19 saves.
Oh my God.
That's awful.
Of 53 wins for a robust 35.8 save percentage of their wins.
That's
my God.
So you can add Bednar, but you might be looking at 3 to 4 saves total. I mean,
You'd
that's
be
just
better
what we
off
have to weigh. You just have to weigh those things when you're
Right,
doing these. So if you bid on them, just make it cheap.
You'd
You're
be
not
better off bidding on my son Jack Carter for saves.
Yes.
You'd be better off bidding on him. $1 fab bid could get you 5 saves down the stretch, guys.
So that's no fair. He can cook the books. He's the manager. He's going to manipulate those situations for
That's
him.
true. I'll sell them to you cheap, guys, right now for sure.
There's no such thing as a cheap son, says the dad whose son plays hockey.
Oh yeah, good grief.
This is my last year of juniors. I can see the horizon.
Yeah, Sami, you're not there yet. You've got a couple of years before the playing for sports and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, my daughter's doing soccer this year, so I mean,
awesome.
I don't know if hockey's in the books, but in the cards, but certainly soccer.
If you want a nice star, hockey's not in the books.
Yeah, soccer's easy. Just get her a ball, she kicks it all around the street.
Kick the living hell out of it. Go ahead and have
fun. Nate, we're gonna move to the All-Star home run, or the All-Star game home team. In Colorado, is Bard going to be traded? If Bard is traded, is it Estevez? Is it Lawrence? Do we care who it is?
The short answer is we don't really care. I'm waiting. I'll let Greg tell me the numbers, but I'm guessing they aren't staggering in terms of total number of saves over the past year.
32.
And thank you very much. What's not staggering is Carlos Estevez over the last month either. 7.5 ERA, 10 earned runs, 5-9 walk to K ratio. The positive I'll take out of that. So the answer I'm giving you is I think that it's Carlos Estevez. Could be Michael Givens at first, but I don't believe that, honestly. I think Estevez, the reason I'm going to say Carlos Estevez is because in these situations when he's been in high leverage, he's been phenomenal. He's been really, really good. Like 8 1/3, 0.087 batting average against. No home runs allowed, and a 2-to-8 walk to K ratio, or 8-to-2 K to walk ratio. So I don't know if it's his demeanor that matches his stature, that he wants to be in that high leverage role. But I mean, 6'6", 270, and pretty imposing figure. I think that it's, again, nobody really cares. It's Colorado, but saves, I write for a Rasball, and like Rasball says, Sagnoff, saves ain't got no face, and yet all I do is cover bullpens. So it's kind of a conflict of interest, but they understand.
I was intrigued by Robert Stevenson when he wound up there, and I know he's been on, or he went on the DL at the end of June. I kind of felt like maybe he had a shot, but who knows what that injury situation is going to be. Greg, this is the floor for you to talk about your guy, because we're going to move to Arizona. And I know this has probably been a tough run for you.
Well,
Joakim Soria's
can't help his elbow.
I know, that's true. Joakim Soria's he's notched a few saves. Seems like a sure bet to be traded. So if Soria is traded, is it your boy JB Bukauskas? Is it Noe Ramirez? And the age-old question, do we care?
This year, I don't think we care. And it kills me to say that, because I was driving the JB hype train all spring, but that elbow setback, he He did get a leverage moment, although he gave up a 3-run home run to the Dodgers there. But at least Muncy didn't tell him to go get it out of the ocean. But, I mean, I'm sure I would give up a 3-run home run to Max Muncy too. But I think what we want to do is see what happens with their bullpen the rest of the way and how they're building it towards next year's. I think hopefully they learned a painful lesson that they really did not address this bullpen well in the offseason, and it really left them in the lurch. That horrible losing skid they went through, I mean, that was hard to watch. I mean, it was hard to be creative writing anything about the Diamondbacks during that mess other than quoting Zach Buchanan's updates every day about their historic losing streaks. So if Bukauskas can pitch well and say like the middle of August on, maybe he learns on the fly and turns a corner and builds towards next year, then we might have something we're building on. I've always been intrigued if they would just put Duplantier into the bullpen and stop. He just can't be a starter.
Yeah,
that would be somebody I'd be really interested in if they brought him up and said, hey, you know what? Just go out there and just throw the ball hard and let's see what happens. I think that would be a major sleeper if they would ever decide to make that decision. And then, Taylor Clark was actually doing okay before he got hurt. So, I mean, it's, Noe Ramirez, if you've watched him, you understand why I have apprehension. He started out well, and then again, just like Hembree, he's realizing he's Noe Ramirez, and he's not very good. So if the Angels gave up on him, I think that should tell you everything you need.
That tells you a lot. Yeah,
this whole bullpen is just throwing a bunch of spaghetti things at the wall and seeing what sticks. And I don't think, as a fantasy person, you want to get involved with that. The Diamondbacks have a robust 22 saves over the last year, 3 ahead of the Pirates. And if they're going to be trading Escobar and all how many games are they going to win?
Yeah. Well, when Seth Beer comes up and is just hitting a bunch of home runs and I can roster him just because I can see Beer in my lineup every day, that's all that really matters.
You come to the South Side and get Jake Berger and Jace Fry.
Perfect. I love that.
Good job, Mike. Way to play up. Yeah. Play the game, buddy.
Mike, that joke earns you the final team.
Oh boy.
And your gift is the Texas Rangers. Ian Kennedy probably gone. DeMarcus Evans didn't really kind of pan out so far. Is it Joey Rodriguez, or do we even care?
Well, I think you do care. I mean, I'd like to move away from us not caring about so many things. We're not in existential crisis like we were talking about earlier, right? No, I do think. I think if they move Kennedy, I think it's Joey Rodriguez's first crack at it. Spores is a guy that might be of some interest. He's pitched in some higher leverage situations for them. I do think DeMarcus Evans will be there. And, we forget that we have another guy that's going to come back next year that'll be in the mix there too, and Hernandez, who has been hurt all year. I don't know, Greg, have you heard anything about it? He's not coming back this year, is he?
No, he had surgery.
Did he? I didn't know if he ended up having the surgery or not. I thought they were waiting.
Nothing has surgery, so yeah.
Gotcha.
They might end up having Spencer Patton close a game or two. I'm sorry.
That's why I was
an existential crisis, but yeah, Wally Rodriguez hasn't had a leverage event in 2 weeks.
Right.
They've taken him out of he's been replaced by Brett Martin and Taylor Hearn.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Well, it's like you said, Spencer Patton. He's been in the 8th inning or greater role since middle of June, or late June 20th, I guess.
Since they brought him up, yeah. But he replaced Evans and actually pitched okay. So maybe he learned something in Japan. We don't know, but yeah,
he's not walking anybody.
They're another team that, just like Robles, they need to sell Kennedy ASAP.
Absolutely.
His numbers have been trending backwards, especially since the sticky gate. They need to get him out fast before people realize they don't have to pay more for him.
Yeah, and I'd be surprised. I think I could see him filling into a 7th or 8th inning role for a contending team.
I just got to say, just talking about these bullpens, I think, a third of the teams in baseball their bullpens are just a disaster, and like I can't even think moving forward what it looks like next year in terms of the way, as a fantasy player, if you're going to jump into fantasy baseball, what you do with saves. Because literally, if a $15 million closer in Aroldis Chapman is losing his job, what else? That was the thing, right? Money would equal security, but that's not even the case anymore. So, thinking about it next year gives me, nightmares.
Well, and along those lines, this is, we've been writing about this, and I included it in my coffee and closers on Sunday. This is the time to stash. You want to put Nick Anderson away? This is the time to do it. He's probably going to be back in August. Diego Castillo has looked far from dominant by any stretch of the imagination. Even if you're in an LL only or a deeper league, now's the time to put Lorenzen away for $1, even if he only gets a couple of saves. I mean, if you're in a league where every save matters, this is it. This is when we're going to be running into these moments where we got to get these guys and tuck them away. There was somebody else I wrote about, and now his name's escaping me. I'll pass my witching hour here, maybe. I don't know.
Save it for coffee and closers and the whole deal.
Yeah,
right?
save it for the articles.
But yeah, this is it. I mean, this is where you're going to start putting your little, you from 40-year-old virgin, you're putting all those seeds in there, and then you get the chance. If you've got the bench space, this is it. This is the time to just start putting those little bids in, because it's better to spend $1 on Nick Anderson today than $100 if he comes back in August and gets the first save off of the injured list, because everyone's going to be throwing the money out the window if they have any left. Because I know my FOB teams in the NFBC are, every week now I'm bidding like $5 because that's about all I got to spit in the wind.
And there's nobody else that you can even put money on that can change your overall standings by 3 to 4 points, like you could get with a closer, because the closer numbers, if you look, it's high up top 2 or 3, very bottom, and then that middle's really tight.
Right, and that pay attention to those league things. In Towel Wars, I added Colin McHugh a couple weeks ago for $3. You know why? Because it's a points league, and he pitches 2 or 3 inning outings and racks up strikeouts. So you know what? He got me like 12 points last week. That's fantastic. I'll take that all day, every day. I had him instead of Chapman this weekend and won. I mean, those are the little things we have to address. These guys that protect your ratios, that can get you a cheap win. And maybe now McHugh was warming the other day when Castillo was struggling, so he would have got a save chance. Boy, that would have been nice. But, we know Tampa Bay is going to do whatever it takes to win. And if Anderson does get back and they get all those other things, that's going to be a high octane bullpen going into the playoffs. And that's why Toronto has to make moves now, because Merriweather with another setback, I'm not trusting that train coming back.
No, I agree with you there. I'm gonna put you guys on the spot in the final minutes as we leave here. Sammy and I always end with a segment called Calling Pitches, where we just make a call on a particular topic at the end. So we just gave people a lot of names. So I just want to end with, if it just 1 or 2 names of the bunch, if you had to prioritize and say to the people, like, this is the guy I would go and grab, realizing that, right now we know we're all just kind of just picking, throwing pasta at the wall, as Greg said. Nate, if you had to pick a name or 2 to prioritize, who would it be?
I'm going to say that I think Richard Rodriguez, just because I think that he is the best name that's going to go to a contender and immediately give, top 6 or 8 overall saves. Granted, that's clairvoyance that I don't possess. So at this point, I'm just looking into a fake crystal ball. But I will also say I'm starting to have my reservations as a Cardinals fan. Alex Reyes has faltered a little bit. Giovanni Gallegos is a name that maybe you could go out and he's rostered in a lot of leagues because his ratios have been solid. But another one who might second half sneak into a few.
Mike, you got a name or 2 for us?
Yeah, we were talking about Kansas City's bullpen before, and I think Scott Barlow is a guy that's going to have some value down the stretch for people. And it's kind of a crazy situation. He's a guy that I have some interest in. I think also too, a guy like Chafin or Tapera, like we were talking about earlier, would be a guy that I would look at rostering now. I think Kimbrel is going to get traded. I think that's a foregone conclusion. And I'd be willing to hedge my bets that those guys, maybe they end up sticking around, and those would be guys that you might be able to get cheap and look at there. Another guy Cole Sulser is another guy in Baltimore that I know he had a terrible time of it last year, but I wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore moved guys like Fry and Tanner Scott, and that might be able to open up an opportunity for him as well.
Nice. And Greg?
Well, Nate's been trying to kick dirt on Alex Reyes since day one because we're both spurned about Jordan Hicks. Who, by the way, I read the last thing that they don't think Hicks might pitch again this year.
Yeah, I saw that too.
They might shut him down. Yeah. I got to pour one out for that, as well as your Ronald Acuna drop. But my guy, and I've picked him up in 2 different NFBC leagues for a robust $2 total. Paul Sewell. I think he gets 5 saves down the stretch. They're going to trade Graveman. They trust him in there. I think the Mariners are going to do like the Yankees did a couple of years ago and rebuild on the fly. They're going to move a couple of pieces like Seager and Graveman and bring up other guys and just try and stay on the bubble of the playoff race and build towards next year. They're gaining momentum. They've been kind of a serum lately for relievers. Guys are going there and they've been able to help them recover. I think it kind of goes under the radar. And I'm going to go Oppo of Mike Carter. Actually, Tanner Scott to me is the arm of intrigue for myself with the Orioles. Since the sticky stuff, he's actually gotten better. His K rate since June 21st is 40%. I don't know why they keep running out some of these retreads.
Totally.
I think they're going to trade Fry, which should open up some leverage. And I like Tyler Wells, too. If those two guys
he pitched really well against the Sox over the weekend.
If those two guys get more of the high leverage moments in the second half building towards next year, to me, that makes sense. And that's something I'd like to see. And keep eyes on Loizaga if he can get off of COVID and Chapman continues to struggle with command. Those are a couple of the names that I'm kind of intrigued by going down the stretch. So, and my money's where my mouth is on Sewell. So it's not like I'm talking out of my hiney. So we'll see what happens there. I could be totally wrong on him, but I think he's.
So you very well could be talking out of your hiney then, is what you're saying.
Yes. It's blown up in my face. I remember 2 weeks ago I did a nice write up on Loizaga, and then that night was when he blew up, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" And then the next Friday, the 2 days later, he had a dominant outing. I'm like, of course, timing is everything. Those
can't win. We can't. The bullpen guys can't win, Greg.
That's called
baseball's a messed up sport, man.
Yeah, that's called talking out of your Bukaskas.
It would be. I might have to save that one.
That's I think that's going to be the name of the episode. So perfect there. I do want to, Sami and I are super appreciative that you guys all came on. I also do want to, thank you just for all the work you're doing consistently week in and week out. A lot of people that are playing are turning to, your articles and your Twitter accounts and trying to make some sense of this thing that is bananas and is impossible. I know it probably gives you guys a lot of agita and stress and, just know that it doesn't go unappreciated. So while we take it out, do you want to just remind everybody one last time where they can find your writing? We'll start with you, Nate.
Sure. On Twitter, at Nate Marcum is the easiest place to find most of my work. It's tweeted, retweeted, mocked, etc. You can find me over at Razball. I write a weekly head-to-head article. I do include saves in that, which is coincidentally about 80% of the article, even though I'm not their saves guy, but do what I can. And then at Bullpen Games MLB on Twitter. That's where you can find Aaron Pags and myself on Apple, iTunes, Spotify. I'm going to do something that I know Greg won't do, is for all the work that he puts in, feel free to go to PayPal or Venmo at G Jewett at CBASyracuse.org or Venmo at Alec-Jewett. He puts in more work for free than anybody else I know, and I know that I couldn't have 90% of the information that I utilize without his help and work. Sorry if I'm not supposed to do that, but better to beg, ask forgiveness than beg permit, whatever. You know the routine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hear that, and I second that. Greg's work is amazing. All of yours is, but it's a very nice gesture. Greg, since we're talking about your work, where can people find your work if they don't already know it?
On Twitter at GJEWETT9. I always spell my last name because even my own school has an email account with the wrong spelling. So I have to include that in there. My articles usually drop Tuesdays on The Athletic about closers. Hopefully you subscribe to the site. There's a lot of great info on there, including me being lucky enough to write the closer columns for them. I do also do work for DFS and a couple of weekly columns at Fantasy Alarm. Those are unfortunately behind the paywall as well. Coffee and Closers on Substack. You can find it right on my Twitter. If you wanted to sign up to receive those newsletters, you can pop it right in there and it arrives right in your email. I don't make you read it. It's always up to you. And then my closer charts, I update those daily. Sometimes while games are happening. Otherwise, when I wake up in the morning, my poor girlfriend, I get my cup of coffee and I go to the table and I start breaking all those down. But as Mike alluded to earlier, and Nate already knows, it is a labor of love. So I grew up with Mariano Rivera, got to see him live a few times. He's kind of led me to covering bullpens, and I would never pay top dollar in my home league way back in the day in our auction. So that kind of always put me on the save chase train. So that's what led me into this crazy little business that we're doing. So I thank everyone. Thank you for the shout out, Nate. And Mike always gives me very kind words on Twitter, which I appreciate greatly. And I love everything that you guys do. And I do believe the bullpen is probably the best. We don't have any infighting on Twitter, which is I'm proud of as a unit. All these other people are always throwing crap at each other, and we just ride off into the sunset arm in arm. No, we do, and we appreciate each other. It's. I see all these stupid things on Twitter. I'm like, why? I don't understand.
Right.
I love the energy of this group. Mike, round it out for us. Where can everybody read your stuff?
Well, I believe Greg is talking out of his Bukowskis again. But, no. I'm on Twitter as well. MDRC0508, the worst Twitter handle of all time. You guys are doing a great job, Eric and Sami. Really a pleasure to be on with you guys. Thank you so much for having me. And Nate and Greg know how I feel about them. They are the gold standard in what we do, and everything that I'm doing is trying to keep up with what they're doing. They're just amazing guys, gracious as all can be. I'm working at Roto Fanatic right now, doing the closing remarks there on a weekly basis. I also do part-time work for SP Streamer and also for Fantrax. So my weekends are spent either coaching Jack or writing, essentially. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. It's definitely a labor of love. I'm so happy to be here. I mean, a year ago at this time, I wasn't even on Twitter, hardly at all. So being able to be part of groups like this is pretty phenomenal. It's a great experience for me, and I thank all four of you guys for letting me be part of it tonight.
I think I'm going to hug my wife after this. I'm feeling a lot better.
Yeah. I got all the feels right now. We got this. You got Trey Mancini making the finals of the home run derby. It's just a good night for feel good stories in baseball. You can find me on Twitter at SamskyNYC. My work is over on Rotoballer, pitching mix videos, articles. Sami and I come out with a new episode of Catcher's Corner every week. Feel free to download, rate, review, spread the love. Let us know what we're doing right and wrong, so we can keep giving you a better product. Sami?
And don't find me on Twitter. I'm a Twitter voyeur. So that's what we'll end this.
Sami likes to watch. Yeah, just let Sami watch. That's all he needs.
Eric, great job in those videos. I can't even begin to think of how to do any of that stuff. I have no capability with videos. I see all these things and I'm like, God, I wish I could do that.
I remember when he first asked me like what he should do, because I think you start off with text, right? And then we were talking about it, and I was like, you need to do videos. Videos get people, like they just bring people in. and it
Yeah,
just turned
it's,
into this crazy thing, which is awesome.
I mean, before I started teaching, I was doing film work, like, you know, video production and stuff like that. And so I teach cinema at the school. So it was just kind of like those skills were dormant, and I was doing them for like production work, but I wasn't thinking about, you know, how to use them in this, you know, at this kind of like venue as I was starting to get into it. Cause this is the first year I've really been covering baseball like full time. And it just started being something I did the first video, and I was like, shit, that was fun. And I thought, if people like it and I thought that was fun, I'm just going to keep doing the thing that I thought was fun.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Absolutely.
I'll end this broadcast.